Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of AngularAir. I am your host, Justin, and on today's episode, we are going to be taking a look at some patterns and practices that we can do to get started with our applications from the very beginning all the way to the long term of our application. Should be pretty exciting. It's our second show this week, so that's a bonus. Well, this is our regular time show, and we had a bonus show earlier this week, so 2 for the price of free this week. So let's say hi to our panelists, then we'll meet our guests. We'll dive into the content and we'll get rolling. Mike has something to say, so I'm going to start with Mike. Hey, Mike, how's it going?
2 for the price of 3 does not sound like a very good deal.
No, I said free, not 3. Oh, free with an F.
All right, I'm on board. Yeah,
all right.
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Nice. Alyssa's with us. Alyssa, how's it going?
It's so good to be here.
Nice. And our guest today joining us is Val. Val, how's it going?
Not bad. Long-time audience, first-time panelist. Great to be here.
We're excited to have you on. We're excited to learn from you.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell our viewers a bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Val Neekman. I'm a solution architect located in Ontario, Canada. And I've been predominantly providing services to American companies. The stack that I'm mainly busy and working on is TypeScript, monorepo, Angular, of course. I'm on AngularAir. And the backend could be a variety of backends, but I tend to stay with one architecture and design system. NestJS is perfectly lining up with Angular. So that is the area of my keeping myself busy these days. Thank you.
Nice. And will we be talking a little bit about Nest as well when we get into the topic, or should we ask some questions about that right now?
A little bit in the middle, it will show itself.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, do we want to dive right into the content? Sure.
Right. So today I'm going to showcase FullerStack. FullerStack is a mono repository that I put together. I've over the past many years, I've had a lot of modules for Python and Django, for PHP, and then for Angular, then Angular 2. These were like my prior arts. So when I work for multiple clients, I do have the prior art to show, hey, I didn't copy it, or what I give you is not yours, is shared, is open source. So at some point, I decided to put everything together in a mono repository, powered by NX, the great NX, and I tried to design it from the bottom up, right properly, to be used as a blueprint for all these new grads, high school students, junior staff, that they come in and they want to see the big picture, not just this small section of the big thing. So this way they could close their eyes, hopefully in 5 years time, and see everything, the big picture vividly. This is also good for the other architects that come from different stacks and they want to see, hey, what's going on? They've been mandated to design something or move something from the old legacy system to the new one. That would be a good blueprint for them as well. They could just look at it, get inspired by it, and then go put their own dent into the universe. That is pretty much what FullerStack is for.
Nice. That's definitely one of those challenges, right? When you dive into something and you're like, you kind of need to be able to have in some way project out of where you might end up with to try and identify how to architect now to get you there, right? But with avoiding the, you're not going to need it right now, so don't build it if you don't need it because you don't know the future for sure. But you still want to try and set up that foundation. And it sounds amazing to be able to have something that somebody could look at and see what the future could look like to help them decide how to tackle it.
My motto is, I put it on my LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is bare, but I put this motto that design for today, built for tomorrow. Let's get the design correct right now. If we go back 3,500 years ago and we get a chance to talk to the pharaohs and say, hey, why did you not build a cube? Why did you build a pyramid? I'm sure they're going to turn around and say, hey, the cost would have been way more. And if we build a reverse pyramid, it would have fallen, tipped over. Unfortunately, these days, a lot of new members of the staff are given POCs to build. And with their narrow field of knowledge that they've got into the tools that they use, and they build a tiny reverse pyramid, a triangle that is upside down. And then comes the demo time. This reverse permit wants to follow, and then they patch glue and bring it to a demo. They pray to the demo gods, everything goes well, and then they get the green light. So if you let's look at some screen that I have prepared for you to demonstrate the idea behind FullerStack. So today we're going to talk about FullerStack, of course, on AngularAir. And one thing that I wanted to show you that, whenever you start the project, you usually find a hello world, and then you move to a to-do list, do some CRUD operation. Probably you buy a dashboard for $20 that is on top of Angular. It doesn't do much, and then you say, I'm ready. Somebody goes, no, you're not ready. Why didn't you go and look at Tour of Heroes? It was great, written by some great people. You look at that and you say, oh, this is awesome. Now I am ready. And then what do? You run to your manager, you say, I'm ready, onboarding complete. Your manager goes, here's the proof of concept, go and build it. But the way that you see Angular, let's say in this context, is not proper because you have not been exposed to everything. So you see a portion of the big picture. And then you go and create your proof of concept, but it was not designed right. And then what happens? Of course, this triangle wants to fall to the left or to the right. It's not stable. You do your best to make it stable, take it in front of the product managers and say, hey, and now we're ready. And then they look at it, they really like it. They give you a thumbs up. A build team or a bunch of developers get together to build it. The POC is usually used because nobody wants to pay for the same software twice, and it looks really good. And then feature one comes, feature N comes, and then as soon as the features are added, it wants to tip over. So what your team does, they're going to hire more staff. They're going to start maintaining it, and then they prevent it from falling over. But at some point, this is too much. It wants to fall over. What FullerStack does, he goes, hey, let's design it right. And then one to end feature, it doesn't matter. One at a time, we bring him over. So what I wanted to show was that it was like FullerStack is not do it all and be it all, but it is something that you could use and you could learn from. Probably some learn from to-dos, some learn from not to-dos, because if you learn something that you should not do, I've achieved my goal as well. Let's look at FullerStack and a little bit more detail. As far as the mono repo goes, is built with NX, is TypeScript everywhere. When you want to go hire somebody, you don't have to worry about how many languages do you know, backend, frontend. You know TypeScript. Do you want to learn more? Welcome aboard. And then ESLint prevents all it just foolproof everything. So you cannot deliberately or unknowingly import from a wrong module and create a circular dependencies. AI-driven translation I put in there. So whenever you want to add a new language, usually in big companies, it takes a year for a new language to be inserted. Here, within 5 minutes, a new language will be inserted using Azure's AI APIs. And then you could give it to somebody that speaks both languages that you're converting to final proof your sentences, make sure that the phrases make sense in the new language. Dependency graph is put in, of course, NX supports that beautifully. So you don't have to go and build, test, lint, and do all the things that you need to do on things that have not changed. If you haven't changed it, why do you want to go and pay the cost for CI/CD pipeline that is going to be costly? A team of 200 that I was a part of, it took 1.5 hour CI/CD pipeline. Imagine that you have to wait for that long to figure out whether your PR is merge worthy. With the dependency graph, we could bring it to 7 minutes. And of course, it's ready for
I thought my 2-minute build time was outrageous, so I'm just gonna slowly back away from that perch.
Yeah, well, we're talking about 200 developers, the planes, they're landing nonstop. You cannot go and repave that runway. You just can't.
Right.
And constantly your CI/CDs, they're running really fast. And those are the things that I try to put in FullerStack for whoever that is looking at it to see. And then when it comes to Angular, everything is in their own libraries, and I stack them up from the bottom top. So DTO is shared between the two because it's in TypeScript. The backend could pull it in, frontend could pull it in. And Prisma is used on the backend that converts everything from the shape of your data into types, so you could pull it in and use it and enforce types. Everything is being put in place such that you could actually grab a part of your repository into publishable libraries and publish them, whether it's internal or external. Another team will benefit from it. So those are the things that I put in FullerStack, and those are things that I'm hoping that people look at and get inspired by. That is, in 2-3 minutes, the definition of why I created FullerStack.
Nice. Yeah. It's all those things that you mentioned are things that, we start off and we maybe don't need right away, or we don't apply right away, but we start to apply them. And it's the one thing that I've seen, and this is probably any stack, not just Angular, but Angular, predominantly, is that, you can build it in so many different ways, but the time when you go to add the next thing, the way you built it might dictate an easier way to consume that new thing that you're bringing in. And so when I hear this stuff that you're talking about, to me, it sounds like, okay, setting up this base to say, here's the direction to kind of start guiding things so that when we're ready to bring these things in, we don't have to redesign something because it's already, there's a spot for it. There's a preparedness for it, right? And then you can opt into using it right now, but at least you've set that foundation to go forward in the future, which is a big plus because, refactoring, refining stuff to go a different direction can be costly and challenging. And when you have a large team like that and it touches a lot of places to make that change and make sure it doesn't break anything, that's a lot. So getting it right from the beginning is valuable.
Absolutely. And especially in large projects, a lot of copy and paste may occur because a new team shows up and doesn't know which way to go and then just grabs one module, copies and renames it. And then if you were responsible for the original copy and it was not designed right, of course, now it's being propagated at a very fast speed. These are the things that FullerStack try to prevent. Wants to give you the full picture all at once, whether it's authentication or authorization, whether it's role-based ACL or permission level, object level permission. All of those are baked in. So as a user, you say, oh, I could create my account, I could change the password, I could change my email, I could do all that. I'm ready for my first feature. Let me just create the first feature. So what do? You put all your time on your core mission to create that feature and take it to your manager and say, POC is ready. And then from there, you decide whether the real project is going to be built on FullerStack or is going to be inspired by FullerStack.
And all of that stuff sits in this repo that is no real cost, right? Like if you're not using it, you're not deploying it. You're not, you can load the repo up with all of these building blocks and functionality and then decide when you're going to use them. So it's not that's not a big impact to bring it in or create it or have it there.
And the license is IT, which means just they can do whatever you want with it. It is not NPM installable because it's a full-blown repository, but within the repository, there are 10 publishable libraries that they're pushed out. Others, they could just pull some subsection of FullerStack and use them in their own stack.
So would the concept be here that like if I was starting up my own thing, I would fork that repo and then start my own version of it based on all of that code?
Yes, you fork it, you rename it, rename the application to what is the best name for the application, and then figure out what feature you want. The feature you want to have it lazily loaded or not, put it in the route system and hydrate or populate your section of the menu that is automatically generated for you is configuration driven. And then boom, your application shows up in the right section of the menu and enjoys the full stack.
Nice, nice.
So what I do have a full working version of it running, and I could show that.
Can I ask you a quick question real quick before?
Sure.
So you talk about the idea how it's not really npm installable because it's not really a runtime thing. Could it potentially be a schematic to be scaled up and essentially to generate the format that you're talking about?
Absolutely.
Cool.
But for me, I did not use schematics because I just didn't want to go and learn that all for this. I was hoping that I make it open source and others come and contribute and slowly we build it together.
Absolutely. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. So this is the Avid Trade. Avid Trader is a fake website that is within this repository. And translation.
I like the logo, by the way.
Thank you. I just, I'm lazy. I just took Angular, flipped it over, and tossed a T for Avid Trader, and that was it. So
it works. I like it.
Yeah. So if you look at the arrow that I'm putting out there, let me just change the color to something that we all could see. If you want to see Angular animation, it's done for you. And if you want to see translation, it is done for you. See, right now we're looking at everything in French. Sometimes.
Hey, can I pause really quick on that? Is this translation real time? This is real time, right? Like
it is
you have one deployment of the app and
one
the
deployment.
Client side is changing. Okay, cool. This is one thing that's important. I think I want to call out because we have a pattern out of the box from Angular to do it from separate deployments, but the real time on client side is something that a lot of companies will need, and so having this solution in here says, hey, here's a way to do it, is out of the box through this is awesome.
Yeah, the reason for that is most of the Angular project that I've been involved with, they've been sitting behind a firewall, so Google has no access to them. So there's no reason for us to have multiple copies, so the search engines are happy with them. So we could pick anything. On top of that, left to right, right to left is really important in many countries. So as soon as you choose a language that is right to left, everything flips over, whether they're your icons, whether they're text, everything flips over. Now we're going to go back to another language that is left to right.
Is that a thing that icons are also flipped in right to left?
Yeah, everything flipped because the icon should come always first. Not the icon itself, the position of the icon. Icon comes first and then the text comes. And of course, if you have a financial tracking system, you don't want to look at the white screen, white background too often. So you want to go dark theme, no problem. And full screen, no problem. Everything is baked in. Animation, here you go. More animation. And this menu system is fully configuration generated. Like you just go put in a list, what do you want? And then you don't worry about it anymore. It just creates everything for you. The beauty of that is, since everything goes through Redux, let's call it, Portfolio goes, I need the full screen. As soon as you click on it, the menu system gets a notification that somebody requested a full screen, go away, and it just goes away. Trend doesn't need full screen. It goes, hey, I don't need full screen. So everything is fully automatic. And if you click on something that doesn't need full screen, it just comes naturally. And, most of the time we want to give people hints, and then the hints should animate into errors. So what we do here, if I just type some names that is not complete, you see animated into, hey, this name is too short. Or if I give an email that is not. And this generating those errors, I see, I didn't want to litter my HTML with if, else, if, else, if, else. So there's a tiny engine there with all the errors in there. everything automatically gets translated for one form. So you just put one line of code and it figures out whether this is a hint or whether it's an error, and it animates between the two. So those are baked in as well. And there's a line here that you don't see it. That is your progress bar. If you go on a slow network, it starts from here and it goes there. So you at all time, you know, hey, you know, this is too slow. Don't press the button twice. So all of those have been taken care of. Now, one more thing I show before we go back to the individual. So I'm going to log in here. As soon as the login information is complete, the button presents itself, because we don't want to bug the backend with information that they're incomplete. As soon as I log in here, it says you logged in, and I've got the alert and notification show up there, which is animated as well. These are the latest things that you want to show your audience. As far as those are the alerts, and these are the latest things, like San Diego is like beautiful and sunny, and where I'm at, it's really snowy and cold. So everything is there and it's ready for your first feature. You don't have to worry about anything else. Just go make your POC, MVP, take it to your managers, to your CEO, and say, okay, we're ready to go and get the budget for whatever that you're building. That was a short demo.
I did see that it was using an X, and it kind of goes into Fergus's question of, can we use any of this if we don't have Node or NestJS backend? Like, what parts of this do people need to know in order to utilize it?
So if you already have, let's say, Python Django serving you with GraphQL, then all you have to do is you not start the backend. If the backend doesn't start, but the proxy for GraphQL in Angular points to something that resolves properly and gives you GraphQL back, you're set. So you could point it to any backend.
Is GraphQL a necessity to have up and running in front of your API?
REST is supported, but GraphQL is first-class citizen. You could get, you have the choice which path you want to take.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like that discussion we had earlier about, you know, the pieces are there. Now you pick and choose. Pieces are there. It starts with some setup, but you can certainly add more pieces or decide to use this piece here or there and start, you know, taking it further however you need to go.
Yeah, so I've done everything to make sure that when you create this, every session is standalone. Like as far as the backends that you've got, I want them to be stateless. So you could have 1 to n backends. So whenever your traffic goes up, you just spawn up another backend. So with that said, everything goes through JWT for accessing, but it goes to HTTP only for your session management, which means if you are configuring the backend on AWS, you have to go to load balancer and say, hey, you know, I want sticky sessions. So your messages go to the proper node, the first node that served you. But let's say you don't want that, then you take the HTTP portion only, flip that to JWT as well, because everything is there for you. You just say, no, I want less security, but I want to be fully standalone and stateless. You could do all of that as well. So at the end of the day, you choose which part of the logic you want. You keep that and you build on top of that.
So this is coming with something to get you started, all the bits to say you could start making a POC right away, but it comes also with the architecture pattern to be ready to go as switching out those bits, right? Or switching out those parts. Yes. And I think that's the big key here is that, you know, you're getting something up and running, but you're getting this foundation. So you're not, doesn't mean that you have to, this is your app going forward. And this is the infrastructure going forward. This is the back end going forward. This is just setting you up for success. So when you're ready to decide on the back end, boom, you know, plug it in.
It is not a complete solution if your design and architecture requirement is different, but it's a very good blueprint to figure out how to start. And let's say as an example that you are very worry about authentication. So JWT functionality is there, and we use the interface in Angular. Whenever a 4.1 shows up, we automatically go back and we say, hey, is the session expired or is my access token expired? And then he goes, hey, your session is expired. Another 4.1, we log the user out. If we get a 200 with the new token, then we insert that token in the header. We'll retry your request without the caller even knowing that we tried it twice. This way, you don't need to worry about timeout, leeway, anything that is JWT related. You just make your call and forget about it. If your session's out, you get kicked out, booted out. Otherwise, you just continue as normal. Those are the things that are there, but if somebody goes, no, I don't want HTTP only because I've been told no cookies, then you take the design and modify it to suit your needs.
Yeah, the interesting pieces here are that the big takeaway is if you're doing a proof of concept, don't just write throwaway code. Be able to write it so that you can take it with you. And this is taking that a step further to basically, instead of having to copy and paste code into a new, more robust structure, to essentially build that robust structure up front, which is awesome. The one thing on the counter side of that is I always end up having these conversations at work about the concepts of team autonomy, of giving you the flexibility to do what you want. And what that usually ends up boiling down to is, what's the baseline for autonomy, team autonomy? Is it has to be digital? Like, it has to not be physical. It has to be a digital product. It doesn't need to be web-based. So are we talking HTML, CSS, JavaScript? Are we talking a specific framework? And this is just, as I see it, another level on top of that, that this is saying, all right, it's got to be web. It's got to be Angular. It's got to be properly architected. And it's taken that level up a bit. And to some people, that's a positive thing of, sweet, I have this really, really cool starter to get me off the ground and running. And other people are like, this is the stuff I like to do. Stop trying to take my lunch away. But I really like the idea of providing a robust solution out of the box, because as far as I know, nothing like that exists out there. It's pretty much, hey, here's an Angular application with an app component, and run on your way. Mm-hmm. So it kind of builds on top of that foundation to set a higher baseline. I like it.
Exactly. There are plenty of to-do lists out there, a lot of Hello World out there. And unfortunately, those are not enough. And sometimes I want to put my hands in new stacks. It would be really good if I find something that is complete, because through code, looking at a complete picture, I learn way faster than a piece of code here, a piece of code there. Everybody's going their own way because it was not built here syndrome. And then at the end of the day, you don't have to bring all these information together and compartmentalize it in your head, put it in the right place. This one says, hey, I am the biggest NX project open source. So you start from there, and then you say everything you need, the batteries included, up to user management. Here you go. Now you've got that. Build your feature on this to figure out whether, and stick it to the wall to hit, throw it at the wall to see whether it sticks or not. If it doesn't, you didn't lose anything. If it does, then you go back, you say, is this the right platform for me? Or am I going to go and change it, use React, use NestJS, use whatever that you want to use, because you've quickly proven that whatever you're building holds water.
And, with the mono repo, with the setup of that architecture, you also get this benefit of, like, if I started to proof of concept that, I have chunks that I've made. So if I do need to change things out or go through a different repo or something like that, I still have stuff that, if built in that way, isolated, separated, smaller things, I can say, oh, I'm taking these 3 things out because they were successful. I need to have something different than what I started with, but I'm going to use those. And so now you have, retention of that code that you made in your POC, if you even had to do it. Like to me, it feels like, and this is kind of the same concept with, like, do I want to just set up NX? I have just one app. Do I need it? Like, it doesn't really cost anything for you to apply that at the beginning, but it opens the door for possibilities down the road. So why not start with that? To me, that's what that feels like.
Yeah.
Right? And the same thing here, like this gives you that stuff to roll with the POC. Like you said, it gives me the door open. It doesn't lock me into anything, but it sets me up for long-term success without having to worry about bringing that in later.
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially, I'm sure there are other mono repos. I'm using NX. If you want to just ditch the backend and not use Nest and use NestJS, you don't need to delete that directory or whatever. You could figure out what it's doing, and in NX, you run one line of command and it creates another backend for you, and you call it whatever you want with the technology you want, and then just point your proxy to it. Or if you want to keep the backend and front and go to React, well, the backend is serving you whatever that you want. You just go create another app. So you could do both. Yeah.
So you showed some stuff, and there was some, design elements and some patterns there, like with the form and things like that. How locked in or how extensible is it? Like if we were to say, look, we have our own branding for what the form fields look like and stuff. Am I going to be able to get to that while using that same functionality that you showed for like error messages? Or how's that set up?
So the error handling engine is a small class that takes care of all of these. It is all but logic. It doesn't know anything about the styling, where it's going to land. It knows, hey, I'm going to convert this to that, and then I'm going to translate it to this language because I've been told that this is the active language. After that, you could use Angular Material, you could use Bootstrap, whatever you could use to pull in this logic is up to you. But the logic, one class takes care of everything for you. So you don't need to pollute your HTML with so many if and else, if else and else. So it's easier for your HTML.
Nice.
And the menu system that I showed you as well, you just have a list. You decide if the menu that you're using according as a child, the child is going to open a new blank target. It's going to open with full screen. Everything that you have through some metadata you put there, and then you just add some HTML code around it, and it just goes. So you don't need to worry about how the menu system is created. There is a menu library that takes care of all of that for you. In the HTML portion, you decide how to, what theme, what CSS, and how to spice it up, put it on left, right, top. So it does that for you. I apologize for a little bit of cough that I have. I can't control it, but hopefully it's not bugging you guys, the audience, the great audience.
No, not at all. I was just really super tempted to like reshell it with Kendo UI. I think I might make that a side project. Be fun.
Yeah. There's a module called layout. Everything's in there. Mm-hmm. You go to layout. Let me just quickly show it to you. So I'm gonna go to camera 4, and let me just quickly. So this is. Let me just increase the size a little bit for our great audience. So the backend is running here. Front end is running there. And this is where my app is. And this is all the lips are there. So first, what I do, I'm going to focus on the apps. This is the API, NestJS, Angular, and of course it's a Cypress. You could have any other technology you want that NX supports and put there. So that's that. And as far as the library goes, I put some rules there that anything that starts with AG is for anything agnostic. You could run it on the back end, you could run it on the front end. So DTO, assets, store, utility, and IPware. IPware is for security. It will guess the best IP address for your client, whoever that is coming to you and asking a question. This way, you could use proxies that are trusted. You say anyone that passing through that trusted proxy, I'm going to talk to them. Otherwise, probably through the backends, they're coming in, and I'm going to drop the request. So those are the agnostic ones. Then we're going to look at anything with NGX. Of course, that is the norm. It is Angular. So we have the authorization with Cachify. Any HTTP request you make, sometimes two modules make the same request. This one intercepts, caches the second one. When the first request comes, it replies to both. Configuration. You know, when you have a publishable library and that publishable library wants to get a hold of environment.ts, it could be in a different repository. It doesn't know the path to it. This one, you just give it the environment in the app, and then you could inject it in anywhere, like whatever you want. On top of that, the configuration could bring configuration that is on a remote server. Sometimes you need that. So it halts the bootstrapping of Angular till the remote configuration is fetched, and then it continues. We have GraphQL, we have Google Analytic tag. So your Angular could say a user clicked on here but dropped off. So you could see exactly what people do in your application. Translation, JWT. This is, Alyssa, layout. The layout is where you go. You say, okay, I'm going to spice it up with different theme. I want to use Bootstrap or something else UI. Everything that you need is in there. Of course, a little bit of UX as well. UX is for, okay, is it portrait? Did they flip the phone? Should I be responsive? All those query selects are coming from that place. A lot of people, they have difficulty with RxJS. Am I going to subscribe? Should I unsubscribe? What should I do? We have a Subify here that you just, with 2 lines of code, it just takes care of everything for you. You don't ever have to worry about, hey, you know, Undestroyed was called. Did I unsubscribe? It just does everything for you. You don't have to worry about it. So these are things that wanted to show you. And NSX is for Nest extensions. And then you have Prisma Mailer. The mailer is quite powerful. If somebody just registers in French, the outgoing mail, the welcome mail is going to be in French if you support it to that person. So he understands translations as well. So the user and system. The layout is really simple, very simple. And the beauty is what I put in that tool as far as translation goes. Before we stop talking about the software, if you want to inject license into header files, you run the license file. If you want to translate and extract new IATN, you call on IATN. The beauty is that calls Azure AI, and within 5 minutes, you could translate to a new language based on the existing language. So you could enable French if you didn't have it, or anything. In 5 minutes, it just translates based on the AI API. You could point it to Google AI as well. Your GraphQL is generated here. Merge, coverage store are here if you want to look at the coverage. And line of code is really important. The line of code inserted in the README file via pre-commit hook, because you don't want to end up with a bloatware. You don't want a small feature have 200,000 lines of code pulled in. So line of code is inserted. You could release any publishable there, and you could update the packages there. So this is, in short, the scaffolding of FullerStack.
So you mentioned Subify, and I have a question for Justin and Mike. Earlier this week, we had an episode where we were talking about observables. Have either of you used that before? I've never heard of Subify. Subify. He was saying that you don't have to worry about unsubscribing at all. And so I just didn't know if either of you had ever used that in a project before.
I have not personally. I'm a big believer of not subscribing manually at all, and doing what I can to just use the async pipe. I write bad code and I always forget to unsubscribe, so let somebody else handle.
But Val, is Subify, that's this implementation for this framework that's providing?
For Angular. For Angular.
But I mean, it's something that you created for this particular.
I created as a part of this framework. Is publishable, is published. Any repository, any project could pull it in and apply it to their Angular. Okay. So He uses
I
the ad decorator, figures out ng undestroyed is being implemented or not, and then he just looks to see anything that has a dot unsubscribe. He goes, hey, I'm being destroyed, and I have a bunch of attributes that they have dot unsubscribe on them. I'm going to go and remove them. 3 ways of doing that. So
yeah, that
So
was
are
good
all of-
clarification, Justin, because I thought it was something else like that was already big and that he pulled in, but you wrote that too. So you wrote everything. I got it. I understand.
I know NGSX, our great Panda wrote it, is great. NGRX is great as well. But I wanted a 20 lines of code store that I could use it on the back end and the front end. So I just went and wrote this store as well for sheer speed. Even the Redux pattern and the stores and the action, everything, it's baked in. And I wrote them not because it wasn't designed, it wasn't built here, because I needed something very small and very fast.
At first, go ahead.
Are the majority of these that we saw in the libs stuff that is shippable separate that somebody could consume?
9 of those are shipped out already. They're on NPM. That on the README, I've included those, and they could be shipped. You could NPM install them right away. That's
okay.
So if you go to FullerStack, you'd see that this is the README of FullerStack, and anything that is here are the list of the things that these are all on NPM, so they could be pulled in by anyone, and yeah.
Very cool. What's exciting about this is like we've had several episodes. We had stuff where we've looked at examples of an application and a full featured application, right? Those have been awesome. And this is like the next level of that, where we see the architecture of the entire repository and a pattern, an example that's really full fleshed out, right? That we saw all these features and things that are there to be able to dive in and see them at that individual level to get that projection. And this is one of those valuable things you talked about in the very beginning. When there's a lot of this stuff that you learn over time by having experience of being in moments where you had to create this or had to create that, right? And that just comes with time. And so if you haven't had that opportunity to have that time yet, or have those projects that tackled things like language from AWS or whatever, right? Then you wouldn't be exposed. This gives you that opportunity to project forward and see what that could look like, to see your potential future, right? And then take that information and critically think about what you're building today with that, almost that experience that you haven't got yet, but could know that could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I want people to see the big picture. It might not be the right picture. Could be just look at the big picture and then morph that picture into what you want. At least you see like, you close your eyes, you see everything vividly. Okay, this is how everything is done, but it's not fitting what I want. I'm going to modify a portion of it, or I'm going to just learn from it and I start from scratch. Either one is fine.
Yeah, like me as a developer, what I always look at and think about is like, I want to collect and have enough information so that I can actively, critically think about what I'm creating. And I feel like I've at least assessed all the things that I feel comfortable taking in, and then I make my decision from there, right?
Absolutely.
And it's so valuable to have that. And you have intent, right? Everybody, like you mentioned, like, this may be a great pattern, right? But for what I need, I might need to do something different. And that's totally fine. It just, if you take that data and analyze it and think about it, then you can have intent on why you're going where you're going, right? And understand that.
Yeah, especially when you're new at this, and when you come here, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Here, the picture that I've screenshotted and put there shows the dependency graph for your backend, your front end. And then you look at it, and then hey, if I change the DTO, this is the path. These will be compiled, build, test, but everything else should come from the cache. And same for this guy that is really complex. When things get really complex, you have a lot of these bubbles, then a circle dependency shows up, whether you want it or not. So through this graph and ESLint to prevent those imports, you could make sure that mistakes are not occurring or recurring constantly. So that is, yeah, that's the dependency graph by, of course, NX. I'm sure there are other monorepos out there, but I've contributed a lot to NX as part of bugging them with issues constantly. Hey, I need this, I need that, and then they've been great. They you know, they make NX better and better. Of course, I'm not working for NX or anything. I just like the tool that they've created. It is great. Justin, I do have 2 short demos.
Okay.
Because I always say, you know, this is ready for your first feature. It would be great if I show you the first feature that I just used twice, and so I didn't have to pay for everything else. I just paid for the features. Whenever you're ready, let me know.
Yeah, let's do it.
Number 1 feature is this drawing app that I've created in Angular. So whatever that I'm doing here, this is RxJS, tracking my mouse, moving around my pen, so to speak, and I could change
Wait,
the
I'm
color.
so confused. Your number 1 feature of FullerStack, what?
Is annotation.
I'm lost. I'm so how? What? Who?
I wanted to create annotation, and I needed some Angular to be there ready for me with all these features. And then I just wanted to put annotation on top of something that is ready. So Angular was ready. Through FullerStack, I created a lazy loaded module called annotation. And now I have a beautiful canvas that I could freehand write anything I want. And this way, when I'm teaching the younger staff something through YouTube or whatever, I don't have to say, go to line 15, go up, or I just move the mouse around. I could just say, look at this guy. This is what I'm looking at. And then I could remove it. So this feature is really powerful. It is free for everybody to use. I'm going to show you the rest of this feature. And one thing that I want to tell you, I really like simple stuff. I take complex problems and turn them into simple solutions. So sometimes Windows has the menu here, but Apple has them there, and Linux could have them there. So if I put my menu system there, is not fair for the rest of the folks. No problem. Move it to top left, top right. Here you go, top right. And it just, the menu system jumps wherever that you want it to jump, right? The other one is that you want the menu system that is there, you want it to be vertical, horizontal. So you could do that as well. And so you have an erase button. So if you click on it, you could erase whatever that you want.
I'm so confused. How? Like, because you just listed all these platforms. How? What?
Hold on. So am I correct in assuming that you have a tablet or something that you're looking at your application and you're synchronizing the data that you're putting into there into your overlay?
That is correct.
Okay.
This is like, I'm using video overlay, and the background of the video is, you could choose white or black, and then you could turn that into the transparent layer. So your lines will come through and your video that is underneath will come through, but nothing else.
So you're taking FullerStack and the bits and every pieces are in FullerStack, and you built an application within that using those parts, right? Using all that framework and everything to accomplish this application that you built to be able to, do the drawing on the screen.
That is correct. I just needed a good place, good home that is ready, warm and cozy, ready for my application. Annotation didn't have to worry about Angular, didn't have to worry about bootstrapping, this and that, didn't have to worry about translation, nothing. It just goes, hey, I could do that, and I'm using all the features that provided by FullerStack.
So the Angular implementation.
Justin, you're like nodding your head like he didn't just say, I use scrambled eggs to get to the moon. Like no, none of like seriously, like you built something awesome and then you built something else awesome, but I'm like so confused on how
Building blocks.
it's
They use Legos.
I think it's
So-
like, let's say
brain.
I was tasked with, okay, hey, Justin, you need to make a proof of concept of being able to draw on the screen over some video. And I said, oh, sweet. I know about this FullerStack that gives me all the infrastructure that I can quickly build my own application proof of concept using the code pieces that has to make this, right? And
Yeah.
so
This is so cool.
So this is a Wacom tablet, and Angular is running on a Raspberry Pi. And I'm just running this. As you see, as I'm running that, you see it right
could
there.
you use this
is
on
the video
another
switcher.
device, or does it have to be like that kind of tablet?
As long if you want precision, I recommend something that you connect HDMI. You see your feet, like you see the precision. This is what I mean by precision. Otherwise, you got to guess where you're gonna put your pen on, and
Right.
so I feed my video into that Wacom tablet, and then now I see everything, so I could draw on it. So,
Can I have
anyways,
the link to this, please?
Yeah, this is
That's
one feature that I built on top of that to prove that this is Angular. I'm going to refresh the page. You see,
Can I use my Sharpie to draw on my non-touchscreen monitor?
yes. You see, I could draw within the application, but I can't draw beyond it. As soon as I move the mouse out, it becomes a mouse for Chromium on Raspberry Pi. When I go full screen, now Angular is running and you don't see Chromium anymore.
Is this how you're doing your video camera bit too, or is that something totally different?
That's
No, I do have a video switcher that does all of that.
Okay.
that full screen, is that the full screen you showed us, that setting and that FullerStack provides a way to do full screen?
Yeah, you just click on full screen. It goes, it just sends an action into the state. It goes, go full screen, and layout picks it up. It goes, hey, somebody told me full screen, and it just goes to full screen.
So I think that's a good example to distill down, right? You needed to make this proof of concept of this drawing app. And one of the features is you needed to be able to have a switch to go full screen or not. And so FullerStack provides the infrastructure to do the full screen logic. You didn't have to worry about building that. All you did was say, let me just use that API that I've got in my proof of concept and leverage the full screen technology that came with that.
Absolutely. All right. The second one probably is going to just take 1 minute that I wanted to show you guys.
While you bring that up, I have a question. So are you essentially just presenting a canvas that is capturing what you're drawing and recording that out there, and then synchronizing whatever you've drawn through NGRX?
No, I take through RxJS, I bind to the mouse or the pen, and then whenever the pen is moving, I put it in a link in SVG, because SVG is way faster at Canvas. And then as soon as you're done, when RxJS detects that the pen was removed from the screen, then it just takes that and redraws that on the canvas that is below it. So you have 3 layers of stuff on top of each other.
Cool.
So the canvas constantly gets the final product of the link that needs to draw.
So using SVG for the drawing and the canvas for the persistence of the drawing.
Yeah, the persistence of the drawing was not required. SVG we didn't require, but since my requirement required the Raspberry Pi with low power, so I do it first in SVG and then I transfer it in the background to canvas drawing.
Cool.
So the next one that I wanted to show you guys is Chat Manager. This is right now our video, right? Let me just increase the size a little bit. So right now, if I go here and I click on that button and I click on the pop-out chat, now we get the chat for today's session, and we have written something in Angular. This is an extension that understands and takes over and injects itself, tells YouTube, inject my iframe at the bottom of this YouTube. You see, this is YouTube. As soon as I click on Open Chat Manager, so I'm going to click on this. Right now, we have a beautiful chat manager that is ready to go. If one of you could type something in, that would be awesome.
I got you.
So somebody just sent a message in. Here you go. This message, let me just change the color of the pen. This message was intercepted, brought into this interface, and is bound to go here. I'm going to click on the message. Here you go. The message showed up there. Now the message is great. Let me show you another magic.
So is that a filter that makes me look more handsome?
Yeah, high definition. Now I'm going to bring the chat and overlay it.
No.
And you know what? Somebody just said no. Let me just bring that person in. And another one.
Are you a millionaire, Val?
No, I'm just... So as you see, I could answer questions one by one without losing a beat. And people could listen. I mean, they could read faster than I talk, right? So they could see who's asking the question. And sometimes a great question shows up, a great question, and deserves a little bit of love. So if you have a YouTube channel, then you get people to communicate. Because remember, you are running this all alone. You see that?
Right.
So what we do, this portion is your management portion. This portion is what the camera sees and takes the black background and injects the rest on top of your video. The pen always wins. You see my other overlays here too? Always wins. And then now if I want to stop the fireworks, I just click on fireworks. We have a yay button there. And sometimes I want to make sure that this lines up. Let me just show you this. Sometimes this is too high or too low, and I want to adjust the size. Luckily, we do have Angular material to the rescue. I just grab this and I move it up and down. As I'm doing it, you see, I adjust it where I want it to be, and then just leave it there. And we're done. So this one has left to right, right to left. Sometimes if you demo into people, you could fuzzy people's names and picture. It has a dark theme as well because it was part of FullerStack. And you could do whatever that you want with it, left to right, right to left, change the color and background. And you could just click on any of these messages and they show up. And sometimes you don't want to handle any of those. You click on the rabbit here, and then all the messages, they're injected here as soon as they arrive. But sometimes somebody wants to use curse words, so you could go there and filter all of those out. You say, I don't want anything.
All right, I have a feature request. Is there a possibility that you could integrate this in with your translations? And if somebody, not me, if you could if somebody posted a message, say in Spanish or French, to be able to real-time translate their chat message into a different language.
Remember, we connect to Azure's AI as well. And one last thing, this is for Mike. This simultaneously could read from YouTube and Twitch, and based on timestamp the message, mix those messages and handle both, just in case you want to.
That's what I was wondering, because this would be perfect for like both. Like, that's so cool. And I love the automatic one, because there's so many times that like I don't have time, like when I'm streaming, to like look at chat, and like if it was just right in front of me, like being brought up automatically, that would be so cool. But I feel like I'm missing a piece, because with both of these applications that you've built or extensions that you've built, like, isn't there like a third party like your video switcher or something that has to integrate with them, or no? Because
We need a video switcher for that if I want to overlay it, but sometimes you just want to answer people's question. You don't want to show them the question. Then you don't need the overlay. Sometimes people give you money, as in super chat, and then that super chat goes away after a while, and they ask the question, you were busy, you couldn't answer, then they're going to get ticked off. Here, it keeps anything that is related to new members and anybody that donated to you. So you could go back towards the end and say thank you and answer their questions. So
that's so
I
neat.
used the chat, and I was overwhelmed with the number of chats was going. So I just created that for myself that says anyone that says less than three words, don't show it, filter it out, or a curse word, filter it out. Sometimes you're asking for people to ask question and answer. You say anything that starts with Q : show it. Is quite powerful. Anyways, that was the demo. We're at the top of the hour. I hope that you liked the two features that used FullerStack to the fullest extent.
Wow.
So you've not just only built a helpful tool on top of default scaffolding, you built tools with that, and now you're also taking over hosting duty. So cool. We'll see you here next week, and let us know what time to show up.
Absolutely. It would be my pleasure. It is at avidcaster.net. Anybody wants to use these tools, avidcaster.net. They're available to you, no cost. I don't have any plan to monetize it, so enjoy it.
So let's self-promote.
Wow.
Are you using these yourself?
Of course.
Where do you stream so we can share the links?
I'm slowly getting to it. Right now, Avid Coder with 2 R's are the YouTube channels that I've created. I put 2 RxJS related video there. I'm trying to teach people RxJS the visual way through animation stuff. So it probably gets more sticky that way.
Nice, nice.
So I don't, Justin, you see, I don't have to plug anything in. I just did 2 features.
Yeah, and I want to call out the fact that, like, you know, let's think about the question here. Like, if I was tasked with building this chat overlay, it did all these things, right? But under the hood, as a developer, you realize, like, there's so many things that have to happen to pull all that together. And that's the power of this fact that FullerStack comes with a lot of that infrastructure, so that we didn't have to worry about doing those bits. We could just get to implementing this feature and then leveraging those pieces to pull it all together at a pretty rapid pace, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
That's yeah.
It had everything. It's like we got this experience of how to learn, you know, what a mono repo and what this whole architecture can look like, and setting up patterns. And then we even got, you know, using it to make these applications, and not just like little, you know, dashboard or to-do applications, but these like real, like, valuable type of, you know, real world type of applications. What a great journey in an hour. That was awesome. Awesome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. You guys are awesome. As I mentioned, I'm a long-time audience, even when you guys had a Panda. And while I keep in touch with the Panda in the back channels, I always admire the time and the work that you put into this channel. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, do we have any picks, panelists, today we want to close the show with, or?
I see blank stare. Alyssa looked like she was deep in thought.
No, I was no thoughts.
I'm going to self-promote. Talking about streaming, I'll be streaming later this afternoon. I have a few projects that I'm going to work on. One of them is actually to work on a tool to bring Twitch content into streams using Angular. I got set up yesterday using something called TAU, T-A-U, which is a Twitch API unifier, which I'm going to use to allow Angular overlays to create. So I may dig through your repo to see if I can find any other ideas. But right now I'm just laying foundations.
Nice. Nice. All right. All right. Well, Val, thanks a ton for sharing your time, for coming on our episode, for watching all those years and all that time, and finally becoming on our show and presenting some content. It's been amazing, and really, really appreciate it and appreciate your time. Thank you.
And I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to contributors to come and take this off of my hand, because the time right now is something that I don't have much of. Hopefully others come and make FullerStack even fuller. That's the only request that I've got. It's your project. It's not mine. I just started it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
We'll get the word out for sure.
I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Thanks a lot. That was a wrap. Have a good one, everyone. We'll catch you next time. See ya.